It is International Women's Day today, March 8th, and we're taking a look at women in financial services. Global consulting firm Deloitte released a report in November 2021 that looks at leadership, representation, and gender equity in financial services. It's also part of their 100 Women in Finance initiative, which seeks to strengthen the global finance industry by empowering women to achieve their professional potential at each career stage. Joining us to discuss further is Sanyade Okoli, CEO of Alpha African Advisory. Good morning to you. Happy International Women's Day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
There are some stats that are released in this report, looking at, I guess, the percentage of women that are part of financial services. I think it's 22% or so, or 24 in 2021, up from 22%. They're projecting 28% by 2030. The gap between senior leadership roles and C-suite executives, which you are one, you're a C-suite executive, is 9%, but that gap could widen. What do you make of these numbers, and do you think what can be done to improve them?
So it's progress, and one cannot discount that. But it's slow progress.
Yeah.
It's not really where, if you cast your mind back, 20, 30 years ago, it's not where we expected to be. But on reflecting on it, I think there's a good reason why.
Okay.
I don't think collectively we've been taking a holistic approach to addressing the issue of women in the workplace, women in financial services. And I'll explain what I mean. If you step back, when a woman gets to the workplace, before that, she's interfaced with several other institutions.
Right.
The family being the first institution, educational establishments, in some cases religious establishments, political. How have they shaped that woman into who she is today? And equally important is how have they shaped the people that she will be interacting with in the workplace, other women and men. Because we don't just get to the workplace and expect the workplace to be able to fix all the sort of the negatives the society has created.
Yeah.
And as you know, the catchphrase for this year's IWD theme is breaking the bias.
Right.
We have to ask ourselves, what are the belief sets that underpin the bias? How true are they?
Right.
If it's a bias, it's not true. Where did they come from?
Right.
How do we begin to overturn these wrong belief sets? And this needs to happen at various levels, at the personal level, corporate, communities, national and global. And when we begin to look at all these things holistically and not just focus on the workplace, then I expect to see faster results.
Great stuff. We just had a graphic up there. Last year, there was a lot that was made about female-led banks in Nigeria. Now, Deloitte talks about a multiplier effect. For every woman that rises to the C-suite, 3 women should rise to senior leadership roles. That's some kind of like a continuum. Have you observed that? I mean, you know.
To be honest, I haven't experienced enough. I don't have personal data. Obviously, I run my organization. So, as you can imagine, we have a fair representation.
Right, I can imagine there would be, yeah.
What it is if you have a woman leading an organization, that woman, by virtue of who she is and where she's got to, doesn't question whether or not a woman is capable of running an organization or capable of leadership. If that woman has a family, either been married, is married, been married, has children or not, she doesn't question whether or not women can effectively juggle family life and work. So I can see how they would give women more opportunities to go into leadership positions.
Great. They also talked about purpose-driven diversity. And if there isn't any purpose-driven diversity, then that gap between the women in the C-suite and the senior leadership roles, which is at 9% right now, will widen. What do you make of purpose-driven diversity, which is, this is what we're going to do?
Robertus, you and I know that if you're not intentional about anything, it's not going to happen. If you're not intentional about life, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Right.
If you're not intentional about your family, you have a clear vision for your family and what you desire for your family, anything's going to happen. Equally, if you say you're trying to achieve greater diversity, and this is a good point to say diversity does not always mean inclusion, and what we really need is both diversity, i.e. a wide variety of people there, but then also inclusion. So, for example, we have greater diversity in the workplace today than we did 30 years ago, but we're not having sufficient inclusion, which is why you don't have enough women rising to senior levels. So if you have diversity and inclusion goals, you're going to have to be quite intentional and have a very, what metrics are you shooting for? What's your clear plan to achieve those metrics? What resources do you need to put together? Financial resources, human resources, etc., to make it happen. So, yeah, intentionality.
Okay, so as a follow-up to that, and this one's a bit touchy, because for every movement, there's those who push back against it. And is it possible for purpose-driven diversity, it's possible to get it wrong, to where men are now excluded, talented men are excluded from positions because of the drive to get women there? But is that a fair question, considering that men have occupied these roles for so long and now we're trying to catch up and the inclusion part? So
it is a fair question.
It is,
to be honest. And I say that as a mother of boys and girls. Where in trying to empower my girls, my boys have asked, what about us? And I realize you can't skew it too far in one direction, because what we're looking for is balance. This isn't a zero-sum game. The reality is when both men and women are allowed to operate at capacity, society is better for it. You have economic dividends. Everything is better. So we need to be careful of the narrative and ensure that in trying to pull one group down, you don't push the other, because you'll just create issues. And remember that women, a lot of them, I acknowledge not all, are likely to marry women. They're going to work with men. Sorry.
Freudian slip. It's
Absolutely.
okay, but you
that
caught
can
yourself.
happen, but what I meant to say is they'll marry men. They'll work with men. They'll be friends with men. So you do need to ensure you're carrying the men along, and it doesn't feel like it's combative.
How much of this for finance? I think we had you on where we were looking at STEM graduates, right? There was a Nigerian university data set on the engineering, and you've revealed that you studied mechanical engineering. Financial services, how much of this goes back to getting more girls studying economics, finance, and so on, and curriculums back in school at an early stage?
In answer to your question, I joined Arthur Andersen some 27 years ago, and a cohort of about, say, 20, 24 people. Only one person had actually studied accountancy. So I was joining the auditing team. You had engineers like me, you had people who'd studied, politics, philosophy, and economics, but you had a wide variety of people who'd studied classics. So for finance, you don't really need to have studied economics or finance, because if you're taking the accountancy route, you start from scratch anyway. If you're going through like an MBA or investment banking, you get trained. So I don't think really you need to have studied a related subject. You just need to have the mindset and the willingness to learn.
Fantastic stuff. Always great having you on the show. Sanyade Okoli, a C-suite member, a CEO of Alpha African Advisory. Thank you so much for joining us on International Women's Day.